There is a documentary produced by one of our professors here at Dominguez Hills, Vivian Price, and it is a documentary on the Bracero program, and it was entitled Harvest of Loneliness. It is a film that is required viewing for this class, especially for this segment. And so we're going to go and we're going to take a series of clips and put them together so that we can appreciate the Bracero program. And what's going to happen is this program became so lucrative because you had a captured labor force that this program is going to continue beyond World War II all the way into the 1960s until the civil rights movement is going to begin to question this particular program. So let's go to the series of film clips.
This is Salvador Ballesteros, 40 years old, a bracero. At home in northern Mexico, he earns about $200 a year farming 2 acres of cotton owned by someone else. $200 to support a wife and 6 children. Even in Mexico, this is not much. It is Salvador's dream for himself and for his children to own a piece of land. To buy land, he must earn more money doing the only thing he knows how to do, farming. And the only way he can do this is to work in the United States as a bracero.
It began in 1942, just as preparations for war were gearing up and a manpower shortage was declared. A bunch of administrative agencies came together, met independently, and hammered out some agreements with Mexican officials.
The workers not involved to bring workers because of the war effort. Well, we never got rid of the program until 1964. The war ended and they continued bringing in as many as 500,000. Depressed the wages, kept the unions out. And what I'm saying is that this is what they do, and they're very good at it.
There may have been a shortage during World War II because you can understand logically that there might be. There are also strikes going on and unions being formed and other reasons why growers might want to have a bracero workforce.
En California hubo una lucha de trabajadores agrícolas. Esa fue una lucha que no surgió en los 60s. Una lucha histórica que venía desde los 30s, desde los 20s. Toda una lucha que venía acumulándose. En la etapa más difícil de esa lucha fue el programa Bracero, porque entonces no prosperaban las huelgas, no había forma de sindicalización.
They've been able to maintain what they call a surplus labor pool, more workers than jobs. That's been the history of agribusiness in the United States.
And it became perfectly clear that what was really wanted was a very cheap, very predictable, and very captive workforce. And these were qualities that the Bracero program supplied. There was a shortage of that type of workforce.
At its peak, which was about 1957, nearly 500,000 men were contracted in a single year. And during the entire course of the program, at least 5 million men were involved. It was a massive population movement, which, in my opinion, never received the attention that it merited. It was one of the largest population movements in the world at that time.
La gente que estaba ya legal aquí en los Estados Unidos, los tenían separados de uno. No vivían juntos, de uno sí, toda la raza junta, pero esas personas ya les tenían su casa o qué sé yo, aparte. Del trabajo sí andábamos todos juntos, pero en las tardes salía uno de eso, ellos ya se iban a su casa. No estaban revueltos con uno de bracero. Pues casi la mayoría de las personas eran mayordomos. Un mayordomo se llevaba que 20 o 30, porque había campos que habíamos hasta 500 o 1000 personas. Como ese de Arizona, nomás en el puro riego, nada más regando, habíamos 180 regadores. Habíamos miles de gentes ahí. Había 2 turnos, empezaba uno a las 5 de la mañana y salía a las 5 de la tarde ese grupo y entraba otro de las 5 de la tarde a las 5 de la mañana, toda la noche. Y a mí me tocó casi todo el tiempo de noche. Pues era duro, trabajar 12 horas puro de noche, estaba todo.
From Empalme, they were brought in on a train. People would get off of the train, naturally, board a bus, And there was an opening back here where the bus would park and the people would come across. So when they got over here, they were in very dire conditions health-wise.
Llegamos nosotros Ciudad Juárez, ya nos bajaron, llegamos al puente, nos formaban y estaba solo el salón y allí nos metieron a todos, ahí nos desnudaron, ahí nos afocaron las máquinas para fumigarnos con polvo de avión, con insecticida, a todos sin saber si nos quedábamos ciegos o no. En la cabeza cantidad de polvo.
Hasta me mareé yo, me acuerdo de cada vez que me usaban esas cosas. Y pues estaba fuerte, toda la ropa estaba hasta caliente cuando la ponía uno.
There was about 7 of us that were hired out of high school, so I had to have been 16, 17. This sounds horrible, but they had to be fumigated.
At the border, individuality disappears in a cloud of DDT dust.
Yeah, I did that for 3 days, and then I said, no, I can't do this anymore because it was degrading to the people. And then, there were some that had all their clothing and etc. very neatly stacked, and you had to ruffle through it and spray it, and that was a bad deal.
For perhaps the first time in his life, he gets a thorough physical examination, partly for his protection and partly to make sure his American employer will get his money's worth.
It was very degrading. You have to remember that this is a captive group. You're going to do what you do with them, and they have no say-so.
Había médicos que estos 2 dedos nos los metían en los testículos. No crea que con modo, no, así. Que había muchas gentes que se desmayaban. En piquete, así, nada más.
They had blood drawn. They were given an X-ray. They were giving a very cursory examination of the tonsils and the teeth.
Teníamos que estar como si fuéramos caballos para la venta. Que tuviéramos salido.
Si estaba malo, regresaba para atrás.
Yo nunca había pasado por eso. Yo estaba muy asustado, con mucha pena, ¿verdad? Que me daba a mí. Porque a mí nunca me había pasado eso allá. Ni con doctor lo habíamos hecho. Y aquí fue la primera vez que me pasó eso.
Y luego se enfrentaban a un sistema burocrático que ni conocían. Por eso en las micas de los braceros, cuando ve uno las fotos, decía, ah, caray, ¿por qué ni siquiera se peinaban para retratarse? Pues estaban hasta asustados, ¿verdad? Le decían, Antonio, pásale para acá. Y se asomaba por la ventana, le ponían un número y lo retrataban. Y salía asustado, así cansado, hambriento.
The first time that I actually visited the reception center, the manager of the center said it would be okay for me to go into the hall where the selecting, as they called it, was going on that day. The fellow representing some growers association up in Northern California was happy enough to have me stand by his side while he demonstrated the way he did his so-called selecting. Well, there were these hundreds of men lined up outside, and they would shuffle past this guy who commented on why he was selecting one guy and rejecting another guy. And it all had to do with whether they measured up to his criteria for what he considered to be a good bracero. These had to be men who were apparently timid, docile, unlettered, impoverished. Anybody who was well-dressed or well-spoken would be rejected.
El centro California, el corralón, le decía, ¿no? Allí estaba toda la raza. Una comparación como si allí hubiera encerrado un montón de bueyes, por decirlo así, discúlpenme la palabra. Porque allí llegaban rancheros, ¿no? De compañías, de particulares, que yo quiero 18 gente, que yo quiero 20. Y pasaban de allá al corralón. A ver.
I found it unspeakably appalling. I thought that it must be something like this in the slave markets of Charleston or New Orleans or Baltimore or wherever they were selecting in those days.
Dice, a unos nos humillaban muy feo. Nos veían casi como a los negros cuando los tenían de esclavos, así casi una comparación con otra.
It was followed up by a standard work contract, which every bracero received in Spanish and in English. There were guarantees of quality housing, safe and comfortable transportation, insurance, both on and off the job, covering workers against injuries and illnesses. But in actual practice, almost all of these apparent protections were widely violated.
Now, this program is carried out under law. In some respects, I don't know of a labor regime anywhere in the world that on paper looks more attractive.
Hubo muchísimos braceros que se enfermaron o se accidentaron en los Estados Unidos y nunca nadie se preocupó por ellos. Muchos regresaron a México incapacitados, ya no pudieron tener una vida productiva y nunca nadie.
Okay, so we can understand that the U.S. federal government supports both corporate and business needs for inexpensive workers and high profits. The resounding theme, as expressed by the Bracero programs, is the federal government ensures people without rights for business. Now, the United States practices exclusionary citizenship. And we can see this through the Bracero program.